Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Day 2 of the 5th Annual Slovenia Business Bridge Investment and Development Conference from global to local, from startups to multinationals. We will start with the panel, Why are multinational companies local companies? Please give a warm welcome to our panel chair, Jure Tepina, Editor-in-Chief of 24ur.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dear guests, speakers, participants, it's an honor and privilege to host this panel with very distinguished guests and a lot of practical insights into the world of multinational and local businesses. I truly hope that we'll have, in the next 2 hours, a bunch of takeaways. We would like to be very dynamic and practical. We'll have panelists with tons of experience formatting and practical knowledge building a successful business environment here and abroad. We will have Slovenian CEOs working for multinational companies, and we'll have CEOs of multinational companies working in Slovenia. So we'll have both perspectives, and on top of that, we'll have very interesting keynote listeners and speakers. And also there will be startups. They will fight for their 5 minutes window of opportunity to have their voices heard. So without further ado, I welcome our host, chief host, birthday girl, happy birthday, MCham, chief organizer of this business bridge, CEO of MCham Slovenia, Ms. Ajša Vodnik.
Thank you, Jure, and of course, good morning and welcome. It's been a long day yesterday, and what we learned is that really trust, people, and cooperation matters for the path to success. And today, I know we'll prove that it also matters how we can basically unite two words that maybe seem impossible to be together, because managers and entrepreneurs like to say, oh, that's that other world. But I really believe that the world is the same and that we really need to cooperate in terms that Slovenia, but not only Slovenia, but the world become a better place. Because you know that what drives entrepreneurs, it's really how to change for the better, but I'm certain that the same thing also drives leaders. And that's why I'm looking forward to this day, which will be a bit different than yesterday. You can take off your ties, guys, if you want. But ladies, keep on your clothes. So enjoy.
Thank you, Ajša. Give her a warm hand of applause. Get those hands warm. We'll need them today. So let's get to work. Our first guest in our first part is a successful businesswoman who ascended to the top of big IT companies in Eastern and Central Europe. She studied in Sarajevo and also United Kingdom. Leading manager of IBM Slovenia, then Microsoft Slovenia, Microsoft Czech Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, Senior Director Enterprise Sales Western Europe, Microsoft, Biljana Weber. Have a seat. There's your microphone in the middle. Ms. Biljana lives in Vienna, if I'm not mistaken, right? So Vienna is also a place where she has a very international life, and Vienna is also a place where our next guest finished his studies. He started his life in insurance business in 1999. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to disclose this information. At Generali, became member of the board and later CEO of this company after becoming a Young Manager of the Year in 2010. Just last month, after the big merger, he became the CEO of Adriatic Slovenica, Gregor Pilgrim. So, how are you feeling? Dynamic?
Right.
Ladies have clothes, men have ties. I want you to remember his tie. We'll refer this to later, and our next speakers know what we're talking about. It's insurance. All right.
It's dinosaurs.
All right. So when we speak with and when we talk with successful business people from United States, or not just in business but in other venues as well, they all talk about coming from a small town, and we all live in a small town. Slovenia is such a small place. How did you make this advantage in your careers? Biljana, you work in a huge company, one of the biggest in the world.
I always say small is beautiful, and I think living and growing up and working in a small country gives you a couple of great traits that are always very, very useful in a career. First of all, you're always curious to learn about the others because you want to be bigger, you want to grow. You're curious to learn about other cultures, and inclusiveness and diversity comes very natural to you. As well as we are not afraid to take the next step, to try the next new things. And we are very nimble, fast, and flexible. We are all, usually from smaller countries, we are more humble, we are not arrogant. I will not mention a couple of nations who have the trait of being arrogant. And these are all great traits who are helping each and every of us to get very quickly integrated in any new environment, in any new company, and build great, great networks. Because when you're in a small country, you tend to know everybody. And when I moved to Prague, I was thinking, okay, how will I establish a business network? And I was so happy to have Gregor moving at the same time. What I have done, I went really to each and every event, to everything I was invited to, because I wanted to meet the people, and I was curious to learn about the Czech culture, the values, the way of living. And this is then what people really appreciate, that you're really, truly interested in them, and then they will accept you much quicker in that environment.
Gregor, being a small guy in a big league, big world, is that advantage or disadvantage?
First of all, you always have to define small. Compared to New York or London, everything around is small. So I think this is it makes no difference. It's about how you can position yourself and how you work. Because for me, business is business.
So it's neither, not advantage or disadvantage.
It's the same. If you ask me, it's not about. It is cultural, like Biljana said, a lot. But the reality is that people are different. So you normally tend to work better with people that are more flexible, that are let's say normal. And I think the arrogance of the let's say the stuff that was always discussed up to now, big international companies and the rest is gone. There's no luxury to have it anymore. It's simply I think everybody goes more local than global currently. You have to be there. You have to be on the market. If you're not there on the market, forget about doing a proper business. And this is why life in my part of the world, and insurance is always local, is never really a global business part. If you're not really, really good with local management and with the people that are in the field, you can forget to be successful. So I would say from this respect, I really do not distinguish between multinational and local. And this is, I think, the easiest part and the normal part how the business is being done.
You just destroyed our panel, so there's no difference.
You see, this is if you put me on the panel in the middle of the night.
But Biljana, sometimes multinational companies tend to fall into this trap of not listening to small, nimble, agile local companies and startups. How do you avoid that?
I think in the global world, the size is not important. It's important what is the value, what is the product you're bringing, what is the service you're bringing, and how innovative you are. And in today's world where innovation can happen anyway in the world because the technology makes it possible, you cannot afford to overlook certain market or certain company because they're coming from a small market. So where do you come from is not important. What are your values and what you're offering in an economy of today is what matters.
Mm-hmm. But Gregor, how you don't fall into this trap? Because we're talking here now, it's not important, it doesn't matter. But then again, you are sometimes looked down upon.
But this is different. I think it is a different topic. One topic is local multinational. This is the market, and this is the dinosaur discussion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we come to startups, innovation, new technologies, where, believe me, it is the most global industry that you can find. You can have in one event pitches of startups from Singapore, Israel, New York, Slovenia, Moldova, whatever, and they do not even think about it. It's a completely other generation in this stuff. I think this is more about being small or big, being agile or being a dinosaur, being somebody that brings the things newly or somebody that does it in the completely other way. And I don't think it's about multinational or global. I think the guys are much more flexible and global than you would ever think. You see startups where it's extremely normal that you have people inside working from 7, 8 different countries, and this is their value. Our problem is simply that in my industry, which is a highly regulated one, which is an old one, it is hard to make the click how to work with them. Is it disruption or is it a part of the innovation process? I think these are the questions. How to put the new generation. It's much more about generation than about being local or multinational. It's completely, I think, two different things to be tackled. Both of them not easy.
So you see startups as rule breakers and much more global because of innovation in technology, in communication?
I see startups personally, I don't see them as huge disruptors. I take my industry. It is not, I think it is going to change the business model, but for me currently the startup scene or working with startups is the biggest innovation tool that you can get.
Biljana, you talk a lot about how to form partner networks. How do you tap into this spine of local economies as a big operator, as Microsoft has?
Right. So for us, the way of doing business is really through the partners. And there are a number of companies who really establish their business based on our technology. And in Central and Eastern Europe, we have around 24,000 partners employing approximately 400,000 people. In Slovenia, this would translate to 1,000 partners employing close to 20,000 people. So these are really very, very powerful networks. And these people are employed locally, they know the customers, and they also develop solutions based on our technology. And there is no limitation for them to go global in a case they have a strategy and desire to go internationally. And because I'm here today, several people contacted me via LinkedIn saying, hey, I've seen you coming to this panel, can we talk? I want to expand to Western Europe, and I'm thinking about my next step for my company. And this human touch always stays, but the desire to grow and to conquer the world is really growing. And I see more and more companies being startups or more mature companies like Generali, wanting really to expand. There is not one single business who will say, I'm happy how the things are, and I don't need to grow, and I don't care about the other markets. Everybody's looking, what is my next step, how I can be successful in this new digital world and in new economy. And the startups here are playing super important role on the two sides. One side, the growth engine of any economy are really small and medium enterprises. Also, if you look at Germany, if you look also, I was surprised in Denmark or Netherlands, there are so many companies that we never heard of because they are niche player in their specific industry, but they are global leader with a couple of $1 billion revenue. So the companies who are small and medium businesses are the engine of the growth of any economy.
Especially Microsoft being a company that needs a lot of partners, right?
Right, but also the companies who are using our technology. So these companies who are small and medium businesses are then empowered by the cloud, but also by the solutions that our startups are developing to help them be more successful. And the startups are starting to be really, really big. And again, if I go back to Prague, there is such a big number and growing population of these startups. And they're always very proud to share how many nationalities they employ. What Gregor was mentioning, we had at the time a development center for Skype that Microsoft has acquired. And they were always telling me we have 38 nationalities in 250 employees. And this was something they were really, really proud of. And this international aspect, who is coming from where, is not important anymore. It's your values and your quality and your skills that bring you forward.
Gregor, do you concur? Any thoughts on this?
Yes, I think if you take a country as a country, and I think Czech Republic in this respect is
one of the top. Yeah.
Is one of the, but also not by chance. It was done by
Systematically.
intention and systematically. you have to currently, I don't think the future lies in a domestic market. Forget it. Take Slovenia. Slovenia will never be a market where somebody will really invest because it is just a huge domestic market that drives the stuff like Poland would be. It is about getting the right environment to get these things rolling on, and this is completely other economy. And then we talk about what Prime Minister said yesterday, red tape, I agree. We talk about taxes, we talk about talent development, we talk about universities, and everything around it is a hard work that have to be done, but this is the future of the stuff. Being today here and tomorrow in New York or Singapore is something that is currently normal.
Yeah, if I can reflect, we talk a lot, we have to act as well. In your opinion, what do this, I'm going to stop referring them to startups versus, or local versus multinational, what do this young generations have to do to get attention of the big boys, of the dinosaurs that have infrastructure, money, corporate discipline and stuff like this that they don't have?
Try. You have to be bold and you have to go around. I think it's about simply putting your proposition on the table. It's not, this world is currently, I think, the boldness or the ability to sell something is huge in this world currently. And then you have to have the product, of course. This is about technology, but you have to try to sell it. If you don't, it will never happen.
So as a great poet, Pink would say, try, right?
I would say there are many very talented, technologically talented young people who are establishing startups in a group. And what I very often see with them is a lack of business acumen, because they would come from the business technology. They're fully, from a technology side, they are very much in love with their product. But how to explain it in a simple world, how to prepare a very solid business plan to attract investors, to trust that this is really what will make the next big startup. This is something where many of the startups are learning how to do, and I've seen the ones that are really successful. They would take on board a coach, somebody from the experienced business background, to help them develop that plan. Sometimes it's the person who also invests in that company as well, and they are helping them to really, we say, update their pitch to be really appealing for the investors as well as for the customers.
And that was a great cue for our next thing. Yeah, so sometimes all you need is a bit of luck and a bit of courage to try. Sometimes you also need an opportunity, and this is also the place and venue where they will get it, some small window of opportunity to make a pitch, to make yourself seen above the crowd, to hear your voice about the chatter and trash of the digital era. So like the great entrepreneur of the last century, John Lennon, said, give startups a chance. Homie.
My name is Sania Zepan, and I'm a founder of Homie. We help kids take their first steps into banking and being responsible. We all know how important money skills are in these times. Too many kids get into debt as soon as they set out to college. With Homie, we want to teach kids the value of work and the basics of money management and financial planning early on. And many parents know how important it is to teach kids how money is earned. This is why US parents spend $35 billion every year just on allowance for doing chores. But these are modern kids growing up in the digital age. 61% of kids age 11 have their own smartphones, and more than half of them have bank accounts. So this is why Homie enables parents to quickly set chores and saving goals for their kids. The app connects to families' bank accounts, and when kids earn money, parents can simply transfer it directly to the child's account opened at any bank or credit union in the US. This promotes long-term saving, establishes a relationship with their bank, and teaches financial responsibility. We launched in 2017. We reached modest profitability last year. We're very proud of receiving love from Apple. We were featured on the US App Store as App of the Day a few times. And while our B2C app grows, we're now exploring working directly with banks in a B2B model. I'm always happy to discuss the future of fintech, especially for the upcoming generations. So if anyone is interested in chatting afterwards, feel free to reach out in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanya. I think that was a great pitch. We'll have, if anybody from the audience wants to comment on or discuss the startups, you are more than welcome to do it. But we have somebody who does this professionally, Bernard Groom from ABC Accelerator. What do you think about the pitch we heard? Were there the right emphasis? I'm not going to pay my kids to do their chores.
Yeah, this is why Sanya started the business in US, where the awareness is completely different as it is here. But I think she will come to Slovenia, to Europe shortly, because the business model is possible in US. It's difficult in Slovenia, what she's doing. And this is about what's important for startups. Sanya is from Celje, so she went to ABC, she was accelerated, she tried to do something in Europe, she very quickly found it's not possible. So she went where the customers are, and this is what the panel is saying here. You go where the customers are. So, and this is also for the remaining startups that will pitch today, you go where the startups are. You develop the business model that can be implemented fast. Because the main thing at the end is, Sanya it's 3 people when they started. I don't know how many you're now, but it's 3 people. It's only as much as you can do. So you need to invest your time as a startup very, very carefully. It's not always about money. It's not about getting investment. It's about spending your time. And she chose to spend it with customers, which was rewarded because now they are profitable and they have profitable growth. And this is the only thing what the investor at the end is looking for. The speed of growth and is it profitable? So yeah, that would be kind of my short comment, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Manan. We'll hear from him again at the end of the pitches. Do you guys like it? I think it was pretty good idea.
It's a super interesting thing. The only thing, there is one limit, is not only where the customers are, it is a B2C proposition is limited by the size of the market. So as in Europe, there's probably a few markets that this would be really successful because of the scalability. But it's a super interesting idea because it's simply pushing one thing that everybody needs. And this is, if I would be anybody from the government here, this is something that kids need. It's simply financial literacy. It's solving a huge problem of the society.
I really also like the idea very much, and it's interesting to read the different researches that loyalty among the younger generation to a bank or to the energy provider, or what we used to stay for our lifetime with one bank, with one insurance company, with one provider of electricity. This is not anymore the case in the younger generation. So going in educating them where to find the right things, but also then working with the banks to keep these customers later is going to be equally important. What we see also is a new trend, and I call it crowdsourcing, and it is that the cloud technology makes it possible for anybody to start and develop any solution to any problem he or she identifies, like the problem Sanya has identified. And then this means that much more people can contribute to the development and resolution of these problems. These could be small problems, this could be really a big ecological problems, it could be disability problems, and it's not only on the handful of IT people to do that. It could be any smart kid, it can be any citizen in the world, it can be any non-profit organization or a startup who can do that. And we see a trend that is called citizen developers, because the technology is now so simple. For the younger generation, it's a kind of a game to code something, to develop a new app. And we will see more and more of these citizen-developed applications coming into the market, and within the companies or on a commercial market.
So is this one of the key takeaways from this new younger generations in startups? One is crowdsourcing, the other one is this instinctively building new things that are really strange and hard for big dinosaurs.
Yes, of course, but also find a partner to develop stuff. Because you have two basic ways how you move in this kind of entrepreneurial thinking. Either you have a platform where you can really scale it, which would be in this, if you're in China, there is no problem. You have Alipay. No, you go to McDonald's in China, forget about banking card. You cannot pay with it anymore. It's only about the QR code. With this, you can do it perfectly. If you don't have it, find a partner that can help you to develop it, because simply then you're getting two things together. Currently, capital and cash should not be a problem. Simply, there is enough around if you have a good idea. Now it's about partnerships and finding the B2B component into the stuff. Then you really have a chance to develop the things. Or you want to really be a disruptor, but I don't think this is the case in this one.
Yeah.
So we divide, let's say very broadly, population into two groups. One are so-called digital immigrants. These are us. We didn't grow up with iPhone or iPad or something in our
late
head.
bloomers.
And then you have digital natives, and this is the generation that is currently from 0 to 35 years old, roughly. And technology comes very natural to them, and developing application is like playing a game. So I think this concept of citizen developers is something that is really going to pick up strongly.
Yeah, they don't need to know what ZX Spectrum is, right? Or Atari.
Thank God.
Exactly.
You know what is the easiest ways how to distinguish? The natives are the ones typing with the two fingers. Us as the ones having a phone there and try to do it.
Yeah, the hand is not long enough. Biljana, what is the, when we put ourselves into the shoes of, again, big multinational dinosaurs companies, what are the mistakes you do when approaching them, when you're dealing with these startups?
I think for the startups, it is usually very difficult to navigate in these big systems. Who is my go-to person, whom I need to talk to? And I have seen that the companies who are having dedicated teams working with the startups, and we call them ISVs, which are independent software vendors, then this ecosystem starts to bloom. And the software companies, I think across the board, all dedicate more and more time into working with the startups and working with accelerators like the one Bernard is running here in Slovenia, because these accelerators are really a great opportunity for the young people to come collaborate and co-create together. I have also seen a number of the banks starting to create accelerators and inviting startups to come and work in their premises with all the equipment available and the latest software, because they want to be the part of this success story. Example is Raiffeisen Bank in Slovakia. They have established accelerator and inviting fintech startups to come and work in these premises and co-create a new solutions for banking and financial industry.
So they are seen and heard
Yes.
in the big leagues.
Yes.
Why is that? Are you afraid of them, or you just want to benefit from them, or this is part of the evolution of the business models today?
The way how Microsoft is working is that we provide a platform, and then all the startups and ISVs are creating vertical solutions and working with that platform to create a solution for the customer. So they are extended ecosystem of us. We don't see it as a competitor, but actually as a broader and better value proposition to the customers. And I think most of the companies are working in that way, because you cannot capture all the intellect within your hands. You really need to enhance your capabilities and value proposition by working with these great smart young people who are having their own businesses and developing amazing things.
Gregor, does big companies know how to talk to them?
No. No, but as you nicely said before, it's my 20th year in insurance. I think for all of the 20 years, we all of the time talk about innovation, about changing the business, about how you need the creativeness, everything. I think being completely selfish, working with startups is the best way how to change the culture of the company. Because you have to experience it. You have to bring somebody to an accelerator from the company to see how it is really going on. If you have somebody 10 years in insurance, look, you work in another environment. Yes, you can be fast. Being fast in insurance world is completely other than being fast in a startup world. I think it's about a real complete other culture. If you start to connect it, I think the magic comes. But it's not something that happens today. So you have to run so and so many people that then drive the change and around. This is the partially selfish part of the insurance working with startups, and it's now huge. InsurTech is highly up. On the other side,
would you mention some of them? What's the best that come to your mind?
Millions. Mm-hmm. No, I don't want to go this lemonade and stuff that everybody knows. I'm not a huge believer in somebody that really wants to change the business model in a highly capital-intensive and highly regulated part of the world. And I don't really, except some exceptions, do not think that peer-to-peer will start to work immediately. I much more believe into a part of the process, about a part of the value chain that will be changed. And then stuff that Throw, for example, is doing, where you really do underwriting from a picture that you're doing, where you do automatic claims assessments, stuff like this. I think this is huge. This is where the magic is starting, and there is huge money in it. So don't get me wrong, you probably will not change the world, but you can get really the business model of a lot of companies change with it. And I think there is where currently the real magic is being done. But it's not about only technology, it's about cultural change and the way you think about it. Challenge the stuff that is there. This is where I think the biggest upside of the stuff is. This is what we try to do.
Maybe to share what we have done in order to really spur this cultural change. Establish a two-way mentorship. It's not only that a leadership of the company is mentoring the startups, but there are startups mentoring the leadership of the big companies, because you learn from every interaction, and it's great for us to learn from the startups what they think, how they see the world, where are the problems. Second thing is initiative which I really, really like. It's called Digi Girls. Because if you analyze the startups, there are still a lot of great, great young men who are very inspiring and very inspired to go and change the world. There are girls, they are amazing and brilliant, but I want to see more of them there. So bringing forward these girls and showing it is possible, they are successful, they had a great idea, they brought it to life, is very important, because then you tap really in a huge potential. You're not limiting it only to the half of the population, let's put it this way.
We'll talk about girls and female in business a little bit later, and Sanja is one of the examples of doing that. But you also mentioned a couple of times that IT is an industry that does not respect tradition, it respects innovation. Do you see enough of that in Slovenia, in your local environment?
I think in order for innovation to be successful, you need to have several elements. It's the talent, which Slovenia absolutely has. When you look at education system and how many great talent Slovenia has produced and is still producing, and when you see just yesterday on a stage, we have seen a couple of really great examples of great talents from Slovenia and innovation and desire to do the things differently. It is absolutely there. So potential is one thing. Second is education system that supports it, and I think in Slovenia to a great extent it does. I see a hunger in the teachers to learn the new digital skills in order to shape the next generation of great scientists, of the great company leaders, of the great country leaders. And then there is an element of the business who will invest in the innovation. I have seen mixed picture across the board. And then at the end, you have a government who will support it with the right rules, regulations. So it's really more elements into that. And I think there is room for improvement. If I compare Slovenia to some other countries that are nearby, who were really accelerating their growth because the government has put focus on innovation, has established a number of the programs, I think we can do better.
Czech is the biggest example of this, how they overtook us in all this. Do we have enough talent, innovation in Slovenia?
Yes, but to be fair, it's not that much different than in some other countries. So let's be fair, we have extremely high educational level, especially on the technical side. We have good startup insurance tech mentality that can be there, but you see this jumping out all over the world. And then you have extremes where really the government started to take this as a huge investment for the future. Czech Republic is one. Then you have really extremes worldwide, which is Singapore or Israel, where you really have pushed in money and systems that are trying to catch the talents and trying to develop this as an industry. And I think it's simply about decision, do you want to be the best in the world in it or not? And it's not something that is completely out of sky. It's doable.
So we have talent, we have education. What's lacking in our ecosystem? We talked a little before that there's a lot of talk, but what needs to be done in order for startups to make it in
You will need to have more development centers from the company side. So if you, once you have, which for example Slovakia is doing really good, whereas you have the technological or shared services centers, simply this drives also the other part of the industry. So I think it's always a co-creation stuff. Alone, nothing will happen except it is really pushed by the government or fund side. Normally it is pushed by simply having a chance to work with somebody. If you don't have it, you will run around and find somebody else somewhere. So it's quite easy.
So who's somebody else? Is this multinationals that jump in because of the ecosystem of the system is not there?
First of all, I think there are a number of grants that are existing on European Union level as well, but there is also on a country level. And I can talk about Austria because my husband is working with one startup in Austria, and I'm always amazed how much support they get from the state. Different kind of grants all the time. You need to submit the right business plan and so on. But having these grants is also giving a courage to the other investors to add the funds, as well as to the owners of the company really to go bold and big. And I think having this safety net in the sense of financing and yes, I will help you is very important when you are new, unexperienced, you're trying new things, and if you have a good advisor to advise you where to focus on, and have financial security on the other side, then the world is yours.
Berlin is a typical place.
Yes.
So take
sure.
Vienna is one. Austria is trying extremely a lot in order to develop the scene and is really investing into huge stuff. On the other side, Berlin, which would be not a logical place to have an accelerator, is really in the last 3-4 years in our part of the world shooting up like hell with accelerator centers of the multinationals that is crazy. There is much more about the stability, is much more about getting the finance, and is much more about getting the multicultural environment.
Yeah, and what the multinational companies can give you is on one hand, technology bases, training, education, also how to develop business plans, but also a network. Which is very important when you want to place your solution on the market. And Microsoft has, but many of the companies have it as well, which is called IP co-sell. So when the partner or ISV or startup develops a certain solution, it is sold together with technology to the big customer through the sales force of that multinational company. So it's a really immediate multiplier for any of these startups who come up with a great solution.
So we talked a little about the system. We talked about this conversation and communication between multinationals, local startups. I want to talk a little bit also about leadership and motivation. across the board. Biljana, you said that this transformation and leadership skills of today are playing to the strength of women. And they're going to be winners of this cultural change. We saw Sanya, you talked about this before. Why do you think that is? Because if we speak what startups don't have that multinationals have, what do we men have that you women don't have that you have? So we want to learn from you.
I don't think men only or women only can be successful. I think you need to have a diversity in every team. And I think diversity is very often reduced completely wrongly to men and women. And by diversity, I mean people coming from a different way of thinking, different educational background, different cultures, different way of thinking and the way how they are brought up, different age as well, because startups and the digital immigrants think differently about the same thing. And there is something that was said that I really like, that the beginners see opportunity in everything, whereas somebody who is very long in business sees just obstacles. We tried it hundreds of times, it will never work.
Just frustrations, yeah.
So having this diversity is, I think, what is really, really a key to success in the future. But not only diversity, but also inclusion. Because if you have 20 different people and you say, I'm great, my team is diverse, but you don't include opinion and capabilities and strength of each of that person into your dialogue, into your business decisions, you're missing a lot of the content and quality that you have in that team. And being diverse and inclusive leader is very important. Whether you're men or women, it is less important. What researchers are saying is that women are better in inclusiveness and better in creating the real teams instead of being a man leading from the front. And also listening skills tend to be better. I think men might disagree. But
sorry, what did you say?
But I think this inclusiveness and leadership from caring side and taking care of the people is what makes people really accelerate. And you were talking about motivation, and I think it's very difficult to motivate somebody because person is either motivated or not. What you can do as a leader is really inspire motivated people, and then you will have really the great success.
Gregor, how do we stay motivated? How do we learn from younger generations who are motivated, and how do we don't see just obstacles and frustrations along the way?
The personal opinion, you are one way or the other one. These things change with experience. These things change with some successes, small things that simply you see that things can be changed, but is something that you have in yourself or don't have in yourself. I think a good manager, a good future manager simply needs to have this. My personal opinion is simply that either you're open to change, you see this as motivation. If you see it already, and you have a lot of examples where you see already with a relatively young age change as something that is hard to cope with, forget it. I think it's something that you simply need to accept and need to enjoy it. If you don't, forget the stuff. So
I think it's also the same with philanthropic activities, which is very important for multinationals. Why do you think, Biljana, the philanthropical actions of multinational companies are so important factor in success?
I think giving back to the society is very important because then you're really a part of that society.
Is helping startup also part of that?
No, helping startup is something that we would naturally do.
Okay.
Philanthropic activities can be categorized in a different way. For us, one of the biggest initiatives is really about the digital skills, because this is becoming today very important. In the case you don't have digital skills, you're not a part of the society. And we started in Slovenia many years ago with an initiative how to bring digital skills to the senior citizens. So they can connect with their grandkids wherever they live. They can read the news on the internet and chat with the other friends who are retired about the latest news they have seen or latest movie they have seen online. But it's also about bringing digital skills to the teachers. Because McKinsey did a research recently saying in next 20 years, many of the professions will be robotized, but not teacher. So if the teacher is having the right skills, then also our children will learn these skills and apply them in life. So bringing these long-term impact through building digital skills, helping employment of the people, because now 90% of the jobs are requiring some digital skills, is a part of the social responsibility of the company and the value the company brings to the market, to any citizen. And I think this is what is important.
Gregor, social responsibility in insurance?
Generally is huge currently in social responsibility. The human safety net works with migrants to, for example, for their entrepreneurial way to get them to get jobs. We work with young families. We try to push some education that nobody would get in the other stuff. So there is a huge investment into the social responsibility. You take it locally. We do it since Generali is here. One side is maybe not purely social responsibility, but sports. If you see, we are huge in sports sponsorships, which at the end of the day has to be said is business, and it's something doing also something good. And then purely stuff that we are doing with kids here and with trying to help the families is, I think, something that, let's be fair, is giving back to the society. Is not only that you try to position yourself, is about getting your people in the company feel good about doing something good. And I think then we come to a huge topic of startups and the stuff around, which I fully agree. Investing into startup is not philanthropy, is basically purely business. But you have so much learnings that are jumping from one to the other side. Like it is the best example of reverse mentoring that you would get. It's simply enriching and getting people to think differently, which then goes into getting much better business done on the field and in the stuff. So I think it's a whole circle. Ecosystem and circle of trying to get something good. And at the end of the day, look, if you do something good, you feel also good. If you feel good, you can do much better the job with your customers. It's basically simply the circle runs all of the time. And I think at the end of the day, look, this is why we are here.
And there is one thing what a company is doing, but also a culture company is building. And the culture is that inspiring employees to volunteer. And this is really super strong at Microsoft, and I was so happy. There was one thing that really touched me, what we have done in Prague. There is a clinic for oncology for children. And then we agreed with the head of the clinic that we would go 10 people with tablets and go and spend one day with the kids teaching them how to code. So they were designing the games, and we made their difficult life in that hospital interesting. For one day there was something else. And these are the small things that you do with the heart, and you don't do because it's good for the PR. We didn't even announce to anybody we have done it. It's something where I felt good that we have done something to help somebody, to their life to be better, at least for a day.
Thank you very much. I think I thank you for this lovely and especially insightful conversation. Do you want to add something?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's give a really big loud applause. Thank you so much. And keep those hands also warm because we have another startup coming up. Sleepy Bottle. It's Awaken.
Good morning. All parents, I think, still remember, and those who are not, I think that they can imagine how stressful it is to wake up to the sound of a screaming, hungry baby in the middle of the night. Especially for those guys who are unable to breastfeed. This usually means that they have to run to the kitchen and try to prepare baby formula as fast as they can. And even though they're super fast, it's still going to take them about 10 minutes. And in the meanwhile, the baby will cry and cry and cry. And by the time they get back, the baby will be wide awake. Which means that after the feeding, which by the way takes additional 10 minutes, they will have to rock the baby back to sleep, which can take up to 1 hour. And they get to do this 3 times per night. So what if I say that with using this device, they could prepare fresh and warm baby formula from the side of their bed in seconds? What if I say that with using this device, they could save up to 4 hours of their time per day? Meet Sleepy Bottle. Sleepy Bottle is world's first totally portable baby formula maker with which you can prepare fresh and warm baby formula anywhere and in seconds. The heater heats up and controls the temperature of water in the baby bottle to perfect 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This part right here is a cartridge where you spoon in as many spoons of baby formula as you want. So when the time comes, when the feeding time comes, all you need to do is take it out, the water is already on the right temperature, twist it open, shake it, and you can feed your baby. So we're already on the market, we're getting tons of positive feedback from our customers, and just recently the King of Dubai bought 20 of our units. So we're looking to expand to the US market, and for that we are raising an investment and looking for distribution partners. So if there's anybody like that in the crowd, please come and find me, and perhaps we can do something together. So thank you very much. My name is Rok, and this is Sleepy Bottle.
Thank you very much, Rok. Thank you very much. I'm glad that King of Dubai have so many wives. And we're moving on to our keynote speaker, Božo Tonina, CEO of Trimo.
Good morning. I would just like to refer firstly to Rok ideas. I don't know, Rok, where you have been 20 years ago, because happens to me once that I know just 3 kids songs. Okay, I'll touch you later. And I need to sing them 92 times. So, yeah. But what I would like to reflect to, and I think that most of it was set according to also my experiences, which I do have with Danish, French, and Austrian multinational companies, is that we don't really need to ask ourselves why or if multinational companies are local companies, because it's irrelevant in today's world. Yeah? And what we also see is that multinational companies are changing, and the more and more value and also decision-making power is transferred to the local organization. It's needed to be that way, because here is direct contact with the consumer, and here is direct contact with trends on the market. In some recent history we faced, if we just see mobile or phone industry, companies like AT&T didn't enter mobile technology. Simply they didn't recognize, because they mastered their own processes on high level. And then guys like Palm came, and Motorola and Sony and Ericsson and Nokia. They were strong in mobile phone technologies. They didn't recognize communication need and development. BlackBerry came, Motorola started doing. Again, they didn't recognize the next step, which was smartphone technologies and so on. So I think multinational companies did recognize that this touch with the markets and market trend is crucial. The company I've been working before, Trimo, simply has a department which is just monitoring startups around and address those who has products, initiatives which are interesting for the further growth of the company. I think we need to do that in Slovenia. And from the Slovenian perspective versus relationship toward the multinational companies, my opinion is following. Due to the market size, no multinational company in Slovenia is big from the group perspective. But it's not wrong. This is just economical size. Where we could be and should be big is to bring new innovations, to bring new initiatives, which then could be capitalized on bigger market, and with that we are generating big value for multinational companies. Yeah? We just discussed yesterday with people I respect a lot that we could develop our environment as a laboratory for big companies, because you can test. You have all the parameters which markets needs and market has. Slovenia is no different. We can speak from the morning till cows come home, but it's a normal market. Yeah? And when you know that, we have, I would say, very quality young people in this society. And you know, we have many proofs. Also, the young program of AmCham is one proof of that. We just need to give those people a chance. And through the platform which multinational organizations are providing, we can promote knowledge, we can promote innovations. And last but not least, you know, we should not wait that somebody, I don't know who, will come and tell us this. It's on us. We should do that. Yeah? At the end, simply look out of the egoistic, self-protecting reasons. I will not comment women in business. I do have experience. I came in the company twice as a successor for women before me, and yes, I think that this is my personal, don't get me wrong, please. I think we should stop talk about the gender equality. It's not the right discussion. It's about the energy, it's about the empathy, it's about the knowledge, it's about the skills. Gender is for private life. Huh? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Božo. If you let me add, it's really nice to work with almost all female team of AmCham. So we're moving on to the second part of our discussion. We were supposed to have 3 top-tier international CEOs working in Slovenia. Unexpectedly, we went down to 2. Sad story with Adria Airways made sure that one of our guests were unable to attend, but Mr. Thierry Villard of Goodyear did send us this audio message.
I think my view is the following. Traditionally, there's those two, both, let's say, small and medium company and multinational, those two can be very complementary, and you should expect the best outcome of that combination if the cooperation and the communication work smoothly, and if their respective leadership find a way to collaborate effectively. So if not, then you would end up in a us versus them type of culture, which can end up in a very negative spiral in my mind. I think small and medium-sized enterprises are traditionally more agile. They are faster in decision-making process, and they have a better knowledge of the local market and the local end users, not to say, of course, the local culture as well. This is important to keep those competitive advantage and fight for them, even if in an integrated organization. This is also why I think it becomes more and more critical to have localized leadership with strong knowledge of the local market, but also with some wider experience across the multinational organization, just to create a little bit of a network, if you want, within the organization. And I think this is very much where Slovenes have the biggest area of improvement, as we do not see enough. And I know Aisha, I've been telling you that many times and many years ago. But I think that's the biggest area for Slovene, as we do not see enough talents from Slovenia in some of the multinational headquarters outside their home countries. Now, on the opposite side, I think multinational have very often the critical mass for investment. They have obviously deeper pockets. They can give access to broad markets, to global best practices, access to innovation as well. And they also play a major role, and for me probably the biggest one, in talent development by offering a broader set of professional opportunities, which is for me the biggest benefit a multinational can offer together with the investment capabilities. And I think small and medium enterprises should use and abuse of those opportunities.
Thank you very much to Mr. Villard, but even with a pair of two other exquisite CEOs, we'll have a lively discussion. So let me introduce Managing Director of Bayer Slovenia and Country Division Head of Bayer Pharmaceuticals from Hungary and Alpe Adria, Alexios Panayotis. In the past, Mr. Panayotis had leadership positions in Czech Republic, Slovakia. He also went to Romania, Greece, and he has more than 20 years of managing experience. And last but not least, Chief Executive Officer, President of the Management Board of NKBM, Mr. John Denhoff. An experienced senior executive, having held various leadership positions at Citibank in emerging and developing markets, including Singapore, UK, Germany, USA, Turkey, Czech Republic, and Spain. Of course, Slovenia is your favorite. All right, here's the microphone. Go on record again. Slovenia is your favorite.
I've had the privilege to live in some of the best places all around the world. I can tell you Slovenia tops the list. Look at the wine, the food, the culture. Everything is beautiful here. And obviously interesting business challenges and a lot of business to be made as well. So how can you lose? I love the mountains, I love the rivers. Great. I could go on and on.
Mr. Panayotis, also, Greece is also a beautiful place.
Indeed, but as our ties are identical today, also our opinions in this regard about Slovenia.
And this is why I alerted you to Gregor's tie, because they're identical.
It took us a couple of weeks to decide which tie to wear, but now we're happy with the selection.
We went for a neutral color.
And a lot of emails going up and down, but I also learned something else, that nobody from startups wears their ties. So is that a dinosaur thing?
Well, it's a different point of view.
All right, so...
regarding Slovenia, I was always saying that you must really have a problem not to like the country, from a private point of view. From a business perspective, we talked a lot yesterday about the advantages, the educational level, the flexibility, but also the disadvantages, the taxation, or the red tapes. But altogether, put Slovenia on a level of a mature European country with all the cons and pros. So I would assume that the sum is positive.
John, we always, since we're so small and so proud of Slovenia, we always ask, how do you feel here? And we always, 10 out of 10 answers is, it's a hidden gem. It's the most beautiful place in the world. You have to have problems not to like it. But when we talk about business environment, not just for business people, but to live here as a business person, it's something else, right? Where do you live?
Well, I live all across the country. I mean, if you want to be a national champion, you have to be present everywhere. So I have a footprint in Graz, I have a footprint in Maribor, and I'm setting up a footprint in Ljubljana. And we obviously have headquarters also in Celje, we have headquarters in Koper, we have headquarters in Nova Gorica. So in a country this small, you have to be everywhere because like somebody said earlier, you have to be where the clients are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but business environment is not, it tends to be, it can be a bit challenging. When you stop looking at the mountains, the lakes, and the seaside, and stop swimming, and then you come to the challenges, right?
Yeah, well, obviously I've had really good experience, but it has been limited to what I saw at the bank. I think one of the first challenges I ran into, I think has a little bit to do with the history and the legacy of the country. There was basically an unwillingness of people to take decisions we saw at the bank. And there was a story I thought to tell where it was actually the very first board decision I was faced with. There was a proposal. We said, great, first proposal. We were so excited. We said, what is it? They said, okay, we're going to buy a forklift. And we said, well, why do we need a forklift? I thought we were a bank, not a warehouse. And they said, well, we have a lot of paper. So I noted down, we could eliminate some paper. And by the way, since then, we've gone completely paperless in our branches, and all the signatures you do are on a digital pad, and now they go into the cloud. So that happened. But at the time, we said, okay, we probably need a forklift. So they said, oh, what's the expense? And they said, it's 10,000 euro. I said, wow, I didn't know a forklift was so cheap. Really? Is this a good... And then the guy explained, we have approval for 150,000 euros to buy a forklift, but now we need a new approval because we found a used one for 10,000K. I said, you got to be kidding me. You should make this decision because it's obviously saving the bank money. And this was a very typical mindset of every decision to be taken, I push to the board. It's not my problem. I'm in charge of moving the paper, but I'm not going to be willing to decide anything. And so this is something we spent a lot of time trying to break down. We had to really create a concept of ownership. So, another story was we went to the salespeople and we said, well, we're doing a great job. I said, great, what are your sales targets? They said, what's a target? So we said, okay, now you have a target. And we said, what happens if you hit your target? And they said, nothing. So we had to really build on a performance management culture. So I think just in summary, ownership and a performance culture were some of the things I saw at the bank we have to build. And the more companies I deal with, we certainly touch many of the companies across Slovenia. They all have similar issues in different degrees.
Is this emblematic to Slovenia, or did you notice it somewhere else in the world?
I've worked and lived in different countries, 12 I think. So I see this in Central Europe. I see it in the Balkans. This is not an issue in Asia, not an issue in the States, not an issue in Northern Europe. It's specific to here.
Mr. Alekos, what were your challenges when you came here to Slovenia? You left Greece at the right time, right? Just before the crisis.
By coincidence, 6 months before the crisis, I escaped. I can relate to what John said, but mostly to the other countries that have been around, like Romania or Czech Republic, not so much in Slovenia. In Slovenia, I observed a more and more mature European environment. So to me, it was maybe a slight observation, but not an issue, not a problem.
John, is this due to lack of self-esteem? Slovenia is a proverbial, we have this issue of being small, and sometimes we tend to think small, even if Gregor before said that's just a mindset.
No, not at all. I mean, look, the people I deal with, don't get me wrong, they're extremely talented. Somebody said earlier they're technically skilled, and they want to learn. So I think a lot of it had to do with, at the bank, the legacy of leadership was not good. We had issues of corruption, we had issues of ineptness, so, without pointing fingers backwards, I think the only way forward was to just look forward and get on with it. But we did have to inspire people to some extent by showing them what the end state looks like. If you look at any one of our expert functions, in Maribor, we found people who've been doing it for 30 years. So you say, are you an expert at risk modeling? And they say, yeah, I'm the most experienced person in Maribor and the entire Styrska, maybe even in Slovenia. But you say, okay, but your models suck. So we had to, in some cases, parachute in experts, consultants, or in some cases, some people that I call catalysts that were very carefully selected people from my personal network, in some cases from other banks, in some cases from other sectors, where in a very hands-on manner, they show the people what the end state looks like and they help them. So we had interviews with people. We said, do you know anything about lending? They said, yeah, I'm an expert. I said, great, build me a lending calculator right now. Some people, they just got up and left because they're not hands-on enough. So you have to pick catalysts who are going to coach people hands-on and show them how do you do it hands-on. And I find the people in our bank are so receptive to those type of people because they realize the foreigners that are here, they're not going to be here forever, but I can learn something from them and I can move up into the chair later. And that works really well.
Mr. Alekos, is this one of the main benefits of having multinational company that can, like John said, parachute an expert and teach certain traits of local business community that cannot do it on themselves?
Indeed, and this is something which really works well in a pharmaceutical company. Because it's also the other way around. We can have Slovenian talents who are joining us and then they'll be sent abroad and they're developing the expertise there. They can stay or they come back to Slovenia to work in another multinational or in a local company, bringing back this expertise. So we see it working two ways, and it's working really well.
I have a friend from high school, and we met after long years at my company event a couple of weeks ago. And she's working for Big Tobacco, and she said, well, it's great because they gave me a variety of chances for my PhD, so I just picked one really good program in States. Is this one of the key issues that small local businesses or startups cannot afford, education and development of their workforce?
I see it as an advantage somehow from both sides, because the presence of multinationals is somehow increasing the competitiveness of the local companies, not only in terms of marketing their products, but making also a better environment for their employees, so they can retain talent and not to lose it to the multinationals. So yes, of course, multinationals have an advantage in this regard because of the bigger critical mass, but it's a mindset in the end. Also, local companies could and should invest in people.
And can they? Do they in Slovenia?
Well, they do. And, look, I mean, we've been, for the first part of our strategic implementation, focused on getting some of the best people in Slovenia or the region to Maribor. So it's not always easy to tell a guy in Koper or Ljubljana, you need to commute every day. So it is one of the countries I've lived in where people are least willing to commute an hour. Because normally it's an hour, 90 minutes.
Yeah,
I've commuted
that's
in some
worlds
cases
away for us.
But so we had to do that in the initial phase by paying what I call the Maribor premium. We said, okay, you're from Ljubljana, we need you, you're the best, we want you, we never go for second best. Then we usually had to pay people a 40% premium. Now, obviously looking forward with some of the inorganic acquisitions in front of us, we have the ability now to recruit people who can be based where they want. So this really helps us access a much bigger talent pool. Even if you're bringing people from outside the country, they might be willing to be based in Ljubljana where there's an English-speaking international school as opposed to Maribor where there's not.
It is true, and I would like to add the home office possibility that we can give to people who are giving it a lot in Bayer, and it helps a lot, especially in this mobile and the digital world now. You don't really have to be physically at the office, and it's about how much you deliver, know where you are. And I find this extremely helpful and offers flexibility to the people.
I want to orientate a little bit to previous guests here at the panel, and Mr. Panayotis, you said also you have, of course it's not controversial, but you echoed the thoughts of Gregor that in this digital era it's obsolete to discuss relationship between local and big multinational and local businesses. What did you mean by that, and do you agree with my guests before?
I do, and I would like to add that in this digital era, maybe, because I can really relate to the title of the discussion, multinationals in the entire local companies, maybe we should stop thinking the traditional role or profile of multinationals and the locals on the same side or startups. The Prime Minister said yesterday that money has no nationality. And the digital era brings this need for speed. In this regard, we should rather picture an ecosystem of multinationals, locals, startups, partially competing, partially cooperating, learning from each other, rather than the traditional sides, what we are and what we are not.
And John, you're totally on board with this, right?
I am, and look, I think the lines are so blurred nowadays, it's hard to know where you stand. So if you look at NKBM, I think of us as a local company. So I was surprised I was on the multinational side of the equation, maybe because I'm a foreigner. But I mean, if you look at our board, we're a mix of foreigners and locals. The diversity is important. I wish we also had more women, but we have one. And we all have very solid people with different expertises. But what we've done is said we want to be the best bank in Slovenia. So we got rid of all of our core businesses in Serbia, Croatia, real estate, any shopping malls. We had pieces of everything. And we just said we want to be the best distributor of financial service products. We want to be a trusted advisor. We have a leasing business, and that's all we are. We're a bank and a leasing company. And that agility lets us really focus. Then we said, okay, let's look at non-core products. So we got rid of 70% of our products, and we simplified everything onto one core banking platform. So now we're poised to start thinking about what comes next. Scale and the next killer app, perhaps, or better distinguishing services. But whether we're local or multinational, I don't think it really matters. You have to take the best resources wherever you can find them, and it's the team that matters. You know, the lines are gray.
We talked with the previous panel about European startup scene in Vienna, in Berlin. You come from states where this is on the whole different level. What is Nakabama's view of Slovenian startups, or the management's view of the Slovenian startup scene?
Yeah, well, there are clearly many talented people here with very good ideas, and in many cases, the ideas are already developed and ready to use. So I think whenever we run into many fintechs, you almost can't avoid them. You know, we always ask ourselves, is this a potential ally that we can leverage? You know, I think a lot of the banks, certainly the bank I was at previously, they were a little bit in panic about the rise of the fintechs. And I don't really see a threat, because at the end of the day, it's about how you access people and bring value. So, you know, any player in any sector can actually leverage some of these partnership alliances. But the skill set you need to do so is to understand, how can I use this channel or this idea and bring it into an existing or a new business model? And that's, as somebody I think earlier said, a lot of the younger generation adept at some of these technologies, or even with great ideas, they don't know how to commercialize the strategy. How do you price it? How do you distribute it? Who do you refuse business? How do you limit your target market? And you know, at the end of the day, you probably have to try 10 ideas to maybe find 2 or 3 that stick, and that's normal.
Yeah, you mentioned fintechs. We heard Sanya from Homey before. What do you think about the competition that comes from the younger generation?
Well, like I said, I don't see competition. I see it as a source of potential to tap into. So a lot of what we did at NKBM was attract the best and the brightest people. There's no coincidence. I changed every single one of my direct reports because I wanted people who were younger, more dynamic, more expert. They weren't always younger, by the way. If you look at some of our top salespeople, they might be 60 years old, but they embraced the vision of saying, I want to understand the client's needs, and I'm going to bring a solution. So, you know, when I saw, for example, every month we honor the best salespeople. In fact, we're sending the winners to Turkey in 2 weeks. So some of these people never had a passport, never even left Slovene borders. Now they're going to go to Istanbul, which is a location they voted for. So this is the kind of sales culture you have to develop with young or old people alike. It doesn't matter. But typically, you know, somebody said it earlier, you get younger people, they only see opportunities, and they'll do anything you tell them. I think one of the secrets of building a great team is you get young, energetic people, and you give them mission impossible, and you know what? They'll find a way to do it that you yourself will never think of. Yeah. And that's what you need.
That's how we see just opticals, they see motivation. Mr. Alexis, at Bayer, you also have a lot of projects that attract this young talent, right?
Yes, we do, and I can give you, I'm sorry, I can give you 2 examples. One was in Slovenia 5 years ago. We pitched for startups, and we had an evaluation for 10 of them, and we were amazed by the freshness and of ideas. Some were crazy, some were logical. It doesn't matter in the end, and some were mind-changing because there was one Slovenian startup, and actually was directed from Slovenia, but there were people from 3 or 4 different countries. And they gave us a different perspective in oncology. In Bayer, traditionally, we consider oncology and research in oncology as a very heavy thing. Huge investment, laboratories, long-lasting clinical trials, etc., etc. But this startup gave us an idea of how to approach certain unmet medical needs in cancer by simply data analysis of past history. It did not work out in the end, but it really gave us a different perspective. And then we started in a more organized way. So 5 years ago, it started in Bayer globally, a pitch every year of startups who have to do with digital transformation or digital developments. And we are having about 200 per year, and we select 5 to 10. And then the winners will get 50,000 euros each, and also 100 days to spend with us in Berlin. They are free to use the laboratories, they are free to use our infrastructure, and they also get a lot of interaction with senior management, high-level training. And at the end of the day, they have no obligation, they just live with the experience, or they might get a proposal for cooperation. And it works perfectly. And the learnings are huge. For example, we decided this year, because the learnings are huge for us, to expand it to 5 times more, 5 times bigger, and to all other divisions, not only pharmaceuticals, but also in agriculture, etc. And the learnings were really mind-changing for us.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just apps for grants, so it's not just all about the money, but it's also the learning experience.
Exactly, and I would like to go here one step backwards. Before the possible investment or not, or possible cooperation or not, the learning experience, which it's of huge mutual benefit. The startups can learn about project management, presenting their ideas, thinking long-term, and also risk mitigation. And we can learn about risk-taking and agility and speed and thinking out of the box.
More than young generations with startups. John, what do we do wrong when we communicate with startups, with the younger generations? Can we, I don't want to say go down to their level, but can we level up with them? Do we talk their language?
I think so. I think part of the trick is you can insource those people. So when I work with consultants I like a lot, I just hire the guy. Then I say, okay, the great strategy you had or the great fintech idea you had, now you implement it, but you have to get it done through the complex organization that's the bank. Much like we heard another speaker say, fintech struggle with getting things implemented, or they often leave before they have to. So I think you just pair up. I think talking to people outside is important. So I almost never refuse an invitation for an interview. Somebody says, can I meet you? I always say yes, because no matter what, you're going to learn something from that person, even if it's saying, have you heard about what we're doing? How do you perceive our offering? And so on. I mean, what I was going to say, in contrast a little bit to what Panos was saying, I mean, if you look at NKBM Challenge, we were not really focused in phase 1 on innovation or leveraging fintechs. I mean, you have to look at the fact that 3 years ago, the bank was quite near to be resolved. We had a bank that was not compliant with regulations. We had wrong talent or talent problems. We had architecture that was end of life and it needed investment, even then knowing it was going to be throwaway investment. So we had to really focus on a phase of back to basics and just getting certain things right. So I think now, if you roll forward 3 years later, it's a very different situation where you can start to tap in to innovation or the sources of innovation or inspiration outside. But you have to be at the right phase of your maturity cycle for this innovation topic to even be relevant. And up until now, I don't think we were there. But I think the market better get ready for us, because we're starting to think about what comes ahead for 2021 and 2022. But in the 2020, we're going to be very absorbed with acquiring and integrating fully Abanca. So we have to wait a little bit for the innovation push, but then it'll come.
And I would like to take it up from what John said about innovation, because everybody is talking about innovation, but who walks the talk and who is innovative? And at the end of the day, it's a mindset. And there is an interesting story I would like to share with you about slow learning, but learning in the end. Out of these startup experiences we were having for 5 years, we realized that we're really behind what we thought we were in innovation. And we really concluded that we were missing the entrepreneurial mindset on a global basis, not even European. And we decided to go for it. And it was a very big project. All middle senior management went to AMD for a long training. And there we realized another thing, but our real issue, our real problem was not being innovative. It was the connection with failure. Failure in Bayer was traditionally a taboo, something punishable, something not talking about. And we had so many workshops and so many discussions and trainings, how to deal with failure, how to embrace failure, how to see it as a learning, not as something bad necessarily. And it was the initial experience from startups which led us there. And then after all this training and all this effort, which lasted a couple of years, we started to do things. And I was personally in a very small team with a bold idea and with a high risk, calculated, we thought, and we went for it. And we were happy until we received a phone call from the upper management saying everything is fine, but sign now with blood that you will succeed. And yeah, it was a slow learning so much about the 5 million cost of the training in IMD. But again, we learned that this happened a couple of years ago. Now we're better and better.
John, and we're echoing the panel before, like Aleko said, this scare to fail is something that also we need to learn from startups. And like Gregor said, they just need to try and try. Do you agree with that?
I do, and there's no guarantee for success or failure. I think usually the driving factor is attention to detail, because everybody has a good idea. They often don't have the timing right, or they often don't have the right execution. So I think execution is more important than the idea, because you can steal or fast follow on a good idea, but nobody can execute for you in your organization.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree with John here, and I would also add on top of attention to detail and excellence in execution, also persistence. So you fail once, you fail twice, you will succeed on the fourth time in the end. And this success will pay off for all the previous failures.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think one of the things you have to do, therefore, is make sure you stay true to your vision. If you have targets you want to succeed in, you have to have KPIs and measure progress along the way, but there's always constant temptation to reduce the scope of work or aim lower. And you can't let off the gas. So this stubbornness that the Prime Minister talked about yesterday, or somebody said, what is it, tenacity is maybe the better way to say it, but you can never really water down your vision or it won't come true.
Mm-hmm. You have this vision of NKBM becoming best bank by 2020. I should say you have a hashtag best bank 2020, but best does not always mean only KPIs, EBITDA and business indicators. It's also a social responsibility. How do you view those the startups and cooperation between NKBM and startups? This is purely business, or is it also a social responsibility to support them?
Well, I agree with your comment and the earlier panel's comments about social responsibility. I think the most principal one that is ours is to provide jobs. If you look at Steyerska, we are one of 3 big employers. So I was talking to the mayor about his strategy now that he's freshly in office. They can provide quality of life, they can provide, a great work-life balance, but, they want us to fund a lot of things. And we said, well, our first priority is to provide jobs. That said, we're also quite active in all the sectors similar to Generali or any of the big companies. You have to play a role because nobody else can do it for you. So we're supporting pretty much all the big athletics around the country, theater, all kinds of art, all kinds of musician, all kinds of youth. And so when you come to the innovative end of the spectrum, we're also active. Our board is spending time. We're on panels judging startups and doing business idea generation. And we do that for 2 reasons. One is because we want to support the community we're in, but we also, as I said, we're not ashamed to partner with a very young startup company, even if it's 3 people in a garage, because if the idea is good, we can help them. We have, if you think about the combined bank, we're going to be talking about 800,000 clients. So we pretty much deal with every single household around the country or soon to be. If we have ways to help younger people learn how to save better, or affluent clients learn how to get better advice on investing through digital channels, or ways customers can self-serve. Those are all examples of fintech innovations that we have already absorbed and implemented. And they can't actually do it without us, and we can't do it without them. So you have to use and support the incubator. So we think of ourselves sometimes as doctors, trying to help the young people come out. And that's why we also mentor people. One of the ladies I mentor is here today. So we also talk about how do we help the career, how do we help idea generation. And that's, I think, part of our responsibility.
Panos, how does Slovenian society can benefit from multinationals on that level?
I was referring to it before, a part of the obvious, which would be the tax revenue, or the investment technology or offering jobs. It's about helping the society, supporting the society to be more open to internationalism. And you have to have the mindset for this, and Slovenians have it. It has to do with what I referred to before, attracting talent, send them abroad, developing them, bringing them back or not, then making inevitably the local companies more competitive in this regard. And these are the more indirect, but I would say equally important to tax revenues, advantages for the society.
How did you like startups so far?
Well,
The pitches we heard?
I wish the baby bottle thing had been there when I was a young father. Now my kids are basically partying at college. So I think now I need a version of that that does cocktails or coffee.
Cocktail to go.
No, I fully agree. And especially, both were really smart and both were somehow covering unmet needs so far. One has to see the details, but for first glance, brilliant.
Good. I'm glad you like it because we have another one coming up. I welcome Chess Universe.
Good morning, everybody. Let me start by explaining how the idea for our startup came to life. I have 2 kids, and they like mobile games. So we are always fighting, going back and forth at when they can play, for how long and what. They play shootouts, tapper games, runners, anyway, nothing educational. So I told them, look guys, how about you start playing something that can actually increase your brain capacity instead of fatally damaging it? I said, I don't know. Perhaps you could try chess, since your father is a chess grandmaster. And they reluctantly agreed to try it. So I really tried to show them everything what the internet, the chess internet industry has to offer. I really put my heart and soul into it. And after a while, they said that, look, we love you, but this was fun maybe when you were young, like a century ago, but not today. Okay, I said to myself, but what if we could make internet chess actually fun? What if we had multiple progression loops and the hooks of the gaming industry? Sounds like a blasphemy, but we did do it. We merged the best from both industries, from chess and from gaming, and created Chess Universe. Chess Universe is the fully gamified multiplayer chess app. Chess is the very core of it. We did not change the rules of it. And the whole world around it is gamified. Our main mode is player versus player, where people globally meet over the virtual chess board to play chess in a fun environment. But not only that, we have 2 more killer features. We have play versus grandmasters, where people play real-life grandmasters and chess stars, and a customized platform for live chess clubs, which sets ground for esports-like competition. There are over 1 billion people playing chess in the world. Only in Poland, you have 400,000 kids starting chess in schools every year. Our mission is to see them continue playing chess and to learn and to have fun while doing that. We are currently actually looking for investment, so feel free to connect afterwards. Thank you very much.
So, Panayotis, John, were these pitches something that you could hear and see everywhere else in the world? Is this something that you would usually have in the business world?
I would say clear yes.
So they did a good job.
Say again, please.
They did a good job presenting their pitches.
Absolutely. And the key here is that one should be daring. And I said before that some ideas are crazy, but sometimes from crazy ideas you have great investments and great benefits. And this idea was somehow combining learning and fun. And if it works in the end, in a kid's mind, and if somehow a kid can buy it in, then for sure it will be a success.
And for the end, John, are multinationals crazy enough to embark on this journey with startups? Can you talk this language?
I think we have to learn how to speak it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you both for coming up here. Give them a big round of applause. And we've been quite harsh with timing for the startups, and we'll give Grandmaster of Startups in Slovenia a final word. CEO, founder of ABC Accelerator, again, Bernard Grum.
Thank you for listening to our startups. What I was asked to speak about, the connection between startups and the enterprise and business. And in reality, I agree very much with what Božo said regarding, men and women and like startups and enterprises. It's when we talk about this, it's like a religious debate. It's about opinion, and this is it's a business conference. So what we talk here is we talk about money. We talk about making business. So the fundamental thing how to make business, and this is the same for startups as for enterprises, it's the business model. This is how the business starts. This is where you see if the business will work or not. Now, the only fundamental change between different players in the business is how fast they can change. In startups, they change very frequently. They can pivot, which means they would change the business model in 1 year, which for an enterprise is unthinkable. I only know very few companies that kind of made the change of half of their business model to adapt to the market. So what I think today is when you talk about making a connection between startups or making a connection to anyone is how does this benefit your business model? And it needs to be very clear. So we do it for money. And if we do it for money, at the end of the relationship, one needs to understand that if you integrate a startup in your corporate world, you need to know how this will benefit your business model. Or if an enterprise will give something or invest something in the startup, the enterprise needs to know that what kind of benefit is it expecting? Is it expecting a business model change, or is it a pure investment? So the only thing what is important when different size of businesses which talk a completely different language while still speaking the same language, they just need to be clear when they enter a relationship what is the final goal. And that is what we've seen working with startups, and I was working for enterprises before. I had also the privilege to work for Biljana at some point in time. So it's just the ability how you implement change and how you drive through. And there's no difference. I, for example, always admired Biljana because she was able to go through to achieve results with grace and persistence. And this is something, it's respected everywhere. And this is something that is expected from a startup from the start. So in corporate, sometimes you can hide between a nice suit and a nice tie. In a startup, you can't hide. You need to push through. And that's what kind of defines you. So in ABC, what we try to do with our startups, we try to work with them so they become investment ready. We don't look for an investment for them. We might help them to find it, but our objective is to get them investment ready, which means making their business model workable, because then business will come and business will invest, because it's market regulated. We're not, charity, we're not giving anyone. We're trying to make money and we're trying to make business work. So that's why also we partner with great providers like EIT from Europe, that they help us with their network. We're partnering with AmCham because AmCham is one of the founders of ABC, because we need the network, we need the connection, we need the business world to come and invest because it makes sense, not because it's a social responsibility, because social responsibility works in the local environment. The companies that we want to promote are here to make money, not just here, but anywhere. It's like Sleepy Bottle launched in London. That was the first place where they launched. Sanya is making money in US. So today, the business model can work anywhere. And that's the big difference between startups and large corporations, because they move faster and they go exactly where the business model is working. So let's just make business. And please connect with the startups and try to find a way how you can make money, because this is what we're here for.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bernard. Please give all the big round of applause to all the participants today. Thank you so much for coming here. To all the guests, and I was right, we had a bunch of takeaways, and Bernard is right. This is business, but it's also breakfast, so please continue with and finish your breakfast, and thank you for being a lovely audience, and thank you for coming. Goodbye.